Then we have our project tab. Our project tab is all our like files that exist in our project. So everything that is in our assets folder will exist here, plus our packages, which is basically the extra plugins and libraries that Unity has imported for us to be able to work. And when we decided that this was a 2D project, that's why it took a little bit to start. It just imported all of these packages. For example, the text mesh pro is just like an improved text script that lets you do way more things than the text that we just saw before. So I have it split into like the project here, like my folder hierarchy, and a preview window that shows me what is inside. It's how I like it. I really like this type of view. But let's go ahead and look what's going on, like, because you see here I only have assets and I have the scenes. But if you go into your project, let me open our project. If we go to Unity Basics, you will see here, oh, I have way more folders than I have in my Unity engine, right? And you will be like, okay, what's going on? Like, why I have all of those when I don't really see them in my project? Like, is it something wrong, or what is going on? Well, no, that's not something wrong. It's just that, as I told you, there are some files and folders that Unity requires in the background to work, but you don't need in your game. Like, it doesn't require to go in directly into your scene or into your hierarchy. And those are the library, the logs, packages. Sorry, packages is over there because it's your like packages, project settings, and temps. From these folders, now we can start talking about Git. So as you can see here, these folders, that's what I was telling you, not all of them are relevant to a Git remote repo. You don't require to keep track of them because you are not actually manipulating them. Like, we never went and create a library folder or the log folder, right? So we don't require these type of folders to be kind of like track. Unity is creating them when we open them, so we don't need them. That's why it comes to be very relevant here in the website, the next step. So in order to configure our Git in our project, because I feel like we already covered a good portion of Unity. We covered the main windows and the main tools that we can use. Now we just want to go ahead and start configuring our Git project with our Git repository with our Unity project. For this task, I want you to show you like what we need to do. So here in the website, you will see that one of the most important things you need to do in order to configure your Git is you need a gitignore file. So what's a gitignore file? So I had here like also a reference. A gitignore file specifies intentionally untracked files that Git should ignore, but files already tracked by Git are not affected. So what it means is all the rules and folders, files, everything that we add into this file won't be tracked by Git. And it means that they won't show up in our Gitkraken. As if you remember our last session, when I changed it, for example, the README, and as soon as I change it and I save it, we saw it pop up into Gitkraken. If I add a restriction to not track the README in my gitignore, if I do it from the beginning, then if I made a change in my README, I won't be able to see it on Git because Git doesn't care about it and it won't be committed. All right. So that's basically what is a gitignore file. And there's a really nice tool here called gitignore.io. This nice tool will let me generate, as you can see here, it will let you generate a gitignore file with the programs that you don't really want. So it's not as easy as like, oh yeah, I just need to not track this. Well, there's a bunch of things, like as we saw already on Unity. So imagine for all the programs that we can use, we need to know every single thing that we need to not track. But we don't want, for example, to not track the project settings, because project settings are important to be shared in our repository. So if we don't do it properly, we could end up with a broken project that every time that someone else pulls it from the repository won't see the same as we are looking, because we didn't track properly our Git configuration with our gitignore. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna go ahead, I am gonna configure that gitignore into our project. So as you saw there, we want to keep track of Unity. We don't want Unity to be like, we want to ignore some files from Unity. I will be using Visual Studio, so I'm gonna add it. If you don't use Visual Studio, or like your team is not gonna be using Visual Studio, you don't need to add it. And then I'm also gonna add the Mac OS, because I also have a Mac, and when I open it from there, are some files like the .ds that are committed, and I don't really care about them at this point. So I'm just gonna go ahead and hit create, and this will just generate a plain text file basically. That's what a gitignore is, and this is how it looks like. It's basically telling me, look, I don't wanna keep track of your .ds store from Mac, because I don't really care about it. I don't want to take care about like these type of files. And if we go down here into Unity, you can see it's not tracking library independent of the capital letter, temp, objects, the builds, for example. I don't care about builds. Like, I can just build again a project. I don't need to save a build into my repo. That will just waste space into our repository. The logs and the memory captures. So that's basically some of the things. And it's also telling me here something very important, which is never ignore. So gitignore also has rules to don't ignore things. Like, we just want to make sure that Unity is not ignoring our meta files. Why is that? Is because our meta files are really important. Like, Unity has a meta file basically for every single thing that you put in your project, and it keeps extra data of that object, and if you delete it, you can like lose a bunch of things. So we can check that out later, but it's just for you to know that metadata is something very important to have. Okay, so now that we have this, I am gonna go ahead and copy it. You can copy it, right? Select all. If you don't know how, is Control A and then Control C. And you can go into your text editor. It doesn't matter. I'm just gonna open it here in Visual Studio, because why not? And I'm gonna create a new file. I'm just gonna create a new text file. I'm gonna open it here. And I'm gonna go ahead and paste all of that instructions. So this is my gitignore, and this is what we require in order to our project to work like good for collaboration with our peers. So, but as you can see here, it's calling this file textfile.txt. In my website as well, I made an important note here. You gotta make sure that your file doesn't have a name and your extension is .gitignore. It's very important, because I have seen that some people say, oh, my project is not working, and when I check the gitignore, is because they have gitignore, that's the name of the file, .txt. And yeah, don't you worry, like that's very common to happen because the .gitignore is a special type of like extension, and if you don't save it properly, then it will save it with your txt and you won't be able to see it. So we're gonna go ahead and say save this file as. So I will go into my Unity projects, Unity basics, and here I am going to say I want to save it as gitignore.gitignore. So no name, and my file extension is gonna be .gitignore. So you see it's saved. Perfect. I saved my gitignore. If I go here into my folder, I have it here. It doesn't look like it looks like I have everything. Doesn't have a name. If I go to properties, I can check it's a type gitignore. So I have it here just in case if you want to check it later. This is how it should look. I have the screenshot there for you guys to check it out when you start like doing it by yourselves. So you go ahead and generate it, copy it, paste it, and make sure that it looks like this. Okay, so now the next step that we're gonna take is to connect our repository into GitHub. So just a brief explanation of what we did before is to configure your Git, you need to generate your gitignore, copy it into your file, paste it into your folder, and then we are able to go ahead and start creating our repository in GitHub. So let's go ahead and create a repository in GitHub. So here is the link, but I have here all the steps that you need to follow, an explanation of what everything means, because for the first time you might be like, I don't really understand what this means. But I added like just a quick description of every single parameter that you need to fill out. So let's go here. It's gonna ask me for my credentials. Here, I hope I remember them. Okay, so I log in. As I said here, once you log in using your email and your password, you will be able to get here into create your repository if you use the link that I gave you, of course. Otherwise, you will have to your repositories, and from there you can hit create a new one. But once you're here, it's pretty straightforward. So you have the owner of this repository. So it's myself, the repository name, which really the only thing that it matters is the name that I have to identify the project that I'm keeping track of. I recommend using the same name that you have for your Unity project, so Unity Basics. So just to keep it consistent. But sometimes you don't need it that way because your Unity project might be just a portion of a project, and it's a bigger project that has more than just Unity. So Unity Basics. And then here your description, as it says, is optional, so it won't affect anything. It's just for if in the future I have another developer, which here in GitHub are called collaborators, will jump into my project to help out or just to collaborate, and the description will help them to know what it is. So this is a Unity project for the online course collaboration and Unity basics. And then you will be able to select if this is public or if this is a private repository. The public repository, as you can say here, anyone can see this repository. You choose who can commit. So basically, a public repository is free for everybody. Everybody can download it. Everybody can take it. It's open to everybody. You don't even need an account to download it. Of course, you won't be able to commit if you don't have permission, but it's open to everybody. And the private repositories are just the ones that you have. And you need to grant a specific and explicit access to other members of GitHub to be able to alter or like make some comments into your repository, right? And who can see it actually, like who can download it. In GitHub, this repo is before it used to be paid. I already talked about this in the last session, but I just want to talk about it. It is paid to make. It was paid to have private repositories. You need to have like a license to be able to host private repositories. But not long ago, they made it public, which is amazing. Unfortunately for this course, because we are using Gitkraken, Gitkraken was changed to be like for the private repositories to only be used on when you have a license. So for the sake of this project, I'm gonna make a public repository so you guys can play as well with what we are creating. You can pull it if you want, and you can download it once we start making the project. But I will encourage you guys to go ahead and just create your own. If you want to later on like share it with me so I can check it out, see if everything is configured in the right way, we can just go ahead and do that later on. So 1 second here, I just want to make sure I can see the chat in case. Okay, so once we have decided that our repo is going to be public, then we can initialize it with a README. A README file, as I said here in my website, here, this is a file that will introduce other people or even ourselves in the future when we forget what the project is about, of what the project is about. As well, it will explain how to use the project, how to deploy it, like everything. We can have all the information that we require there. It's very common to have in software development, and that's why we are going to add it too. And we're not going to add all like the things because I usually just have a template that I have to fill out for my like corporate projects, because when we're making like a project like that, like for a company, we need to keep track of everything because we want another developer to be able to open it and just need to read the README to be able to keep working on it or deploy it or something. GitHub has some nice features here to add a gitignore or like a license, but I won't be using this one just because I didn't have too much, like when I added the Unity gitignore, it didn't went as well. It didn't have all the things that I needed, and especially when I added other ones like Visual Studio, for example. As you can see here, there's a bunch of things that are not tracked and are important to not track, and GitHub didn't add those for some reason. But I don't know, maybe it has changed. I haven't really give it a try to see if it has changed. If maybe some of you guys know about it, feel free to tell us. It will be nice if we can add it from here as well. It will just cut a little bit of time. But yeah, we are gonna create that repository right now. So this will create us a repository here in GitHub, and we have our repository with our code. We are not gonna take care about anything of this right now because it won't be useful for this course. As we already saw this interface on the last session where we were editing, for example, the README and things like that. And this is basically how many comments I have, how many branches I have, how I can clone it and download it, create new files, upload new files, and the structure of my project. Right now, the only thing that exists on my project is a README. So let's go ahead and keep going. So now we are gonna clone a repository. There are various ways to do it, and I posted here 2 ways. So if you wanna do it by command line, or if you wanna use a user interface program like Gitkraken or GitHub Desktop. Depending on what you use, you will be able to get your project into your computer. So I'm gonna do both quickly just to show you. So we're gonna go ahead and go into Gitkraken, as it says here. And when you open Gitkraken, as I explained last time, you will log in using your GitHub credentials, and that will connect your computer, like this Gitkraken, to GitHub. And because we already set up the SSH key in the previous session, so if you didn't do it, go back there and do it. You will be able to pull your repos without any trouble. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select this little folder, because not all the time you have this new tab. So I'm gonna hit here and I'm gonna select clone. We already went through these tabs in the previous video. So I'm gonna go ahead and select clone. So I wanna clone a repo, and I'm gonna clone it from GitHub. When I select GitHub, it already knows who I am and which repos I have. So I'm gonna ahead and say, oh, I wanna clone it into Unity project GitHub. I can change the location if I want using this browse button, and here I can start either like looking for my projects or just typing Unity basics, right? I can select that and it will tell me like, okay, we're gonna create a Unity projects GitHub Unity basics folder here with your clone repo. So I'm gonna go ahead and clone this repo, and I'm gonna say, yes, please open now this project. So we have here what we saw last session, our Gitkraken, nice Gitkraken with our left column with the master and the remote branches, our middle like history section, and our commits and like files section. What we are gonna do right now is, let's go ahead and just close Unity for a moment, because we don't really care about saving it, but whatever. We close it just to be sure. And what we're gonna do, this is just a little bit hacky way because of the sake of the course, so it's more explanatory. So we have here our project and we're already tracking this, right? I just wanna make a quick example. So we have this package updates. I'm just gonna copy this first, and I'm gonna go into GitHub Unity Basics, and I'm gonna paste it here. As you can see, it automatically show me that I added that logs. But as we know, we don't want to track that, right? So we are gonna move our git ignore here, and when I move it, it tells me, oh, the only file that you actually have is your gitignore. Like the log that exists, like if we go here and we see here, we have the logs, but it's not tracking it. That's due to our gitignore. So our gitignore will automatically start ignoring those files, unless I push them into my remote, or like even into my local branch before I added the gitignore. So if I do that, my gitignore won't work. So I'm gonna show you a quick example. I'm gonna create here a new file called tracked file. It's just a file, and I'm gonna commit this file. It's empty, doesn't matter. This file will be tracked even with the rule on .gitignore. So I'm gonna commit it. It's committed there, right? And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna commit my gitignore. Boom. Let me just double check one thing here. Unity basics. Oh yeah, cool. So I'm gonna just go ahead Unity here, and I'm gonna commit add .gitignore. I'm gonna commit it, and it's there, right? Now my Git project knows about the rules that I wanna apply while I commit changes and I have like new things in my folder. But let's say, oh, I didn't want to track this file, right? So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna copy the name just in case, and we know it's a txt. I'm gonna open this guy, and I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna say, I don't want to track something called this.txt. File, save. My gitignore was changed here, and I'm just gonna commit it. Update.gitignore. There you go. But if I go and change here, hello, it's, sorry, yeah, it will be changed here in, and Git will like take it as a change, even though I told him not to track this file. And I will be like, what's going on? Like, I changed that file, but that's something for myself. Like, it's maybe something that I just want to keep for myself, or it's a file like the logs or something like that, and it's tracking it. That's because I didn't add it before, like it was tracked before I add the gitignore. So that's why that's my mistake. So this was just a quick example. I am gonna go ahead and remove this, and just so we can start fresh in our project without having all of that, I am just gonna go ahead and delete it. And it's gonna complain because Gitkraken is open. Boom. So it's removed. So that's another thing important to notice. Changes that I made, they were in my local repo. I never hit the push button, right? So because I didn't do that, now that I'm gonna pull again my project, you will see that it's only the initial commit. Like the readme is gone. Like all those other commits that I made are gone. They don't exist anymore. That's because I didn't push anything. So make sure that you always push your code, because that you committed doesn't mean that it's saved in your remote repository. It's just saved in your local. Okay, so now that we have that there, let's go ahead and now for sure copy all of our things. So we're gonna go ahead here, copy, and we're gonna go into GitHub, Unity Basics, and paste everything in there. Of course, it's gonna be copying everything because in my local machine, it's actually doing it. Like it's actually copying everything into that folder. But in the repo, like you can see, it's copying 2,527 files, right? So it's copying a lot of things. But when you go here into Git, because at the end the gitignore was committed, like it was copied, Git only saw 23 files from all those 23,000, 2,300 files that we just copied, right? So that's because of our gitignore. If I remove my gitignore, it will go back to the 2,000 something. If I commit everything and then add the gitignore, like the project will be in a bad shape. Like your gitignore won't be doing anything. It doesn't mean that it's broken. Well, it means that it's broken, but it doesn't mean that it's not like you cannot recover it. There is some commands in the command line that will let you basically remove everything from your code, apply your Git rules, and add again everything of your code, and it will get rid of all of the files that are not supposed to be tracked. So that's something that sometimes is even useful when you see that one of your files has been tracked and you didn't really need to. maybe you miss one of those rules in your gitignore, or when you create it from the gitignore.io, it didn't have that rule, but you saw it later on. So you can still add it, like even though you already tracked it. I'm gonna add quick instructions on the specific comments that you need to, the specific commands that you need to apply through the command line or like the terminal in my website. So you can go ahead and look them there. So for good practice, I always go ahead first and add my gitignore. So add .gitignore, commit that, and then I can add this. As I was telling you, every single thing basically in Unity has a meta file, even like the folders. Like the scene folder has the scene.meta. So every single thing has a meta file which has some extra information that is really important for you to keep. That's why our gitignore explicitly says do never ignore meta files. Okay, so as a good practice, as I told you last time, we need to just make sure all of these are things that we want to change, like add. It's a good thing we have here the project settings. Here are, as it says, the project settings of our Unity project. For example, the Unity version, now 2019 1.10, if you don't know which one is, and things like that. So we can go ahead, for example, and update our README and Unity project for online course Unity basics, made using Unity Engine version 2019.1.10 using free assets. Save, close, and I'm gonna go ahead here and commit update readme commit, and then I know all of this here. When I know everything is actually something that I want to commit, I can just go ahead here and stage all the changes. And I'm gonna go ahead here and say add Unity project to the project template. Okay, so we will commit that, and we have all that we needed and all that we need here. We're gonna go ahead and push, and that's it. It's in our repository. So now, for the sake of this course, we have what we need in our project. We don't really care about this anymore. Like, this project is irrelevant. I just need my GitHub project now that I have it here locally, and as you can see here, it has this .git folder that is hidden, so you probably won't see it unless you show your folders. But this means that you have a Git project. Here is a bunch of like files that has the configuration of your folder. Like, it will tell you which is the head that you are right now, like which is the branch, and like which commit you are at, and everything. Like, all the configuration is in there basically. Okay, so having that said, we now have a complete Unity project that is on GitHub and has all the files, like I can show you, they are here. I'm now going to, the next thing that I'm gonna do is gonna show you how to do the same process but using the terminal or the command line, in case you wonder how to do it. There's still like the tutorial here with the steps, with the code you need to use to do it, but just in case, I'm gonna go quickly and show you how to do it. So the first thing we need to do is go ahead and open a terminal. So there's two ways to do it. One first way is you go open a terminal, a command line, and you will have to start like going through your, like navigating through your folders. right? But for the sake of this, like of Windows, instead of doing that, which is like long and maybe you forgot, like it's easier to go using your file explorer. So here's a little trick that is very nice. Like I'm sharing this with you guys because it's something that I really love and enjoy. And it's like, look, I will have to go into to the to my like drive first of all. Like when I open my command line, I'm on C users gap, so I will have to go back, or I have to just go into E, which is annoying. So here I can just open my file explorer, go to the folder where I want to go, and we're gonna just go ahead again and clone it. So I want to clone it here. I can't clone it in GitHub because it already exists, so it will give me an error. So I'm gonna go here, and I'm just gonna click the navigation bar, and I'm gonna type CMD, and I'm gonna type enter, and this will just open a terminal that it's already has navigated into my Unity projects folder. So imagine that I am inside of a like a way more deeper um, like folder path. I can use that shortcut to get in there pretty quickly if I don't remember the correct name of the folders and things like that. It sometimes is way useful like this. So now that I am here, I'm gonna go ahead and click this one, sorry, git minus minus version. So I can just show you. So my git version is this one, it's in Windows. And in order to pull that project, we can go here. It's telling me open that, go into the folder, and then I'm gonna use this command git clone, and I need to copy the name of my project. Where do I get that? So if I go here, I see this nice green button. I also have the image here. You will click clone, and here there are two options. Right now it's telling me I'm gonna clone it using my SSH key. If you did the previous session video and you configure it on your machine, you will have your SSH key and you will be able to use this method right away. If for the contrary you didn't set up your SSH key, or maybe you are in a different computer, you just need to quickly pull your project for something, you can switch to use the HTTPS protocol, and you will be able to pull it without the SSH key. The difference is that when you use this, you will be asked to prompt your credentials from GitHub. So you will be required to enter your email and then your password to be able to pull. If I use the SSH key, I won't need that. So I'm just gonna go ahead, click this button to copy. It will copy it to my clipboard, and I will go ahead here and I'm gonna say git clone, and I'm gonna paste that little piece of code. If you don't know how to paste in a terminal, just right click and it will paste your content. Now I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna hit enter, and it's gonna tell me I'm cloning into Unity Basics. This is the first time that I'm doing it from this repo with this SSH key. So it's telling me the authentication of the host, this is the address, can be established right away because I haven't like agree to use this fingerprint. So I'm gonna go say yes, and there you go. Oh, it gave me an error because I don't have correctly set up my credentials. Oh yeah, sorry. I switched the computer for this session because of the microphone, so I'm gonna use the HTTPS, which is actually good. We can show how this is done using when you don't have your SSH key in place. So git clone, and I'm gonna paste it here, and it's gonna ask me, oh, there you go. I already have configured that, so Probably I did it before. So once you do it once and you configure your credentials, it's gonna remember them. Uh, so for example, in my case, I already had prompted, probably when I was preparing the course, I prompted my credentials, like my username and password, or even actually Gitkraken. When you do that, it will most likely add those into your Git configuration. So that's why I have everything already set up. But when I do that, when I clone, it's cloning, boom, 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 boom. It tells me it's 100% done. And if I go here, I have my Unity basics. And as you can see, this is also a good example to show you guys. If we go to our GitHub, which has our main project, it has all of this. But the new one that I just pulled, it only has the files that are tracked by Git, which are like 23. Remember, like 23 plus these two, 25. So we only have this. This didn't come from kind of the server. This is just generated. So we have these files. As it is, like it's not a complete Unity project. But once I open it with Unity, with the Unity Hub, for example, it will start generating all those things. So let's go ahead and open the hub. I'm gonna go and say an add. Add is when you already have a project. So I'm going to select Unity Basics. If it recognizes that this is a valid Unity project, maybe it's not a complete Unity project, but it's a valid Unity project, it's gonna tell me, yeah, sure, you can open it. It's telling me, oh yeah, there you go, Unity Basics. The version that you're using is 2019.1.10. Yeah, that's correct. And the platform that you're using, you can just set it to the current, which is the Windows, and I can click it to open it. What this is gonna do is it's gonna generate all those other folders that we have on the other project. So let's go ahead and open. It's gonna do the same process that we saw at the beginning, of like calculating the assets that needs to be imported, like the packages and like the scripts, and it's just gonna regenerate. Like as you can see, it just already started. Like it created my library, my logs, my packages, my temp folder, everything into here. So Unity is capable to recreate those folders that you need in order to run your game, but you don't really require them because they are bind to your computer basically. So it's something that you don't want to keep track of on Git because it will cause like a lot of troubles with your coworkers. So having said that, this is how things will like how you can use your Unity project to have it set it up with your Git version control, especially using Git and GitHub. Is not only one, like basically the process that I just showed you is exactly basically the same that you will do with other host companies. Like if you are using GitLab or you are using Bitbucket, it will be pretty much the same process that I just showed you, where you have to create your repository, name it, select if it's a private or a public repository, and then like those kind of things that are not as important, and then you just put like your code. You need to add your gitignore because those are rules not from the host, those are rules actually from Git, and then you can save your project. So we are with our project, and it was pulled, it was regenerated all the files, and that's it. Okay guys, so for today we have concluded our session. I think we have covered what Unity, like the basic things from Unity, like the tools, the windows, and the basic like keys that you can use, as well as how to configure your .git, like your .gitignore file, which is pretty important. Up to here, the next sessions that we will have will be purely coding our game. So from the next week, we will just start doing code, importing our assets, basically having this project working. We'll, and as we go, we of course we're gonna start covering some of like other basic things from Unity. For example, like what is a collider in Unity, which is very important, which is that green line that you see there, and that other like circle and that square. So those kind of things is hard to explain them without going into a game. That's why the intent of this game is to touch base on like some of the basic things that you will require while making a game, so we can explore the most important things on Unity. For games like this type, like of course we are not gonna be able to cover all like the extreme complex things that Unity has, like even for like making just a 3D game or a VR game, AR game. We are just covering the important stuff that we require in order to make a 2D game, but it will help, like it will give you the logic if you then want to go into a 3D game. Like the difference, it's big. But if you have the logic and you understand what is going on in this, like in this game, and if you follow it along, you will be able to then just jump into a 3D game without any trouble. The problem might be just the assets that you will require an artist to give you 3D objects and things like that. But aside from that, you will be able to make a game. Just a quick introduction of what we will be doing and what we will be covering on the next session, on the next week, is we will have all the sprites first that we will require for our game, how to import them, how to set them up, and we will start like setting up the background, how to set up like the level. I just created this level like this, but then you can expand and make it way more complex, and like having a bunch, like you have all this space, like you have infinite space to create your level. Of course, it depends on like the capacity of the like the machine that it will be running it. So if you have, for example, a phone, you don't want to have a huge like level, because it will crash your phone basically. But in terms of like capacity, you can make as big as you want your game. Uh, on the next time, we will go into tiles, how to set them up, how to basically set this up, and then we're gonna start like setting up the player, how we can have all of this, the animations, and probably we will start working on the player controller, which is the main script for the player, which will let us walk, how to collide with these objects, how to like basically move, and apply the animations into the object, like even starting from the idle animation. As you can see here, our player is on idle mode there, and how to make it walk, attack, jump. So that's what will be covered on the next session. I hope you guys learn a lot in this session. If you need anything extra, like if you wanna follow and like complete this exact same thing by your own, here is the website again. You can go ahead and like go to it, so you can basically do it again. This is recorded as well, so I will be forwarding this recording to New Media Manitoba. They are also posting it into their channel as a full video. I also gonna be posting it into my channel. I just created a new channel for like this kind of courses, because I wanted to have it separate from like gaming and all of those things, like streaming games, and things like that. So that's why I created just one new channel that is for these courses, and I am uploading them in parts. with basically what was covered on each part, because we covered a lot of things here. Like we cover how to download the Unity, how to set it up, how to activate it, how to set up Git, how to set up and connect it to your GitHub, uh, how to pull your repository and like actually have your recently created Unity project into your GitHub account. So yeah, that's it for today. Thank you so much everyone for joining, and I hope to see you on next week.